Okay, Sarah, hi. Welcome to Unhealed.
Thank
So,
you.
a couple months ago, I was scrolling on TikTok and I came across your videos, which I honestly, as a DV advocate, come across child court or any kind of child cases a
Yeah.
lot frequently on my algorithm. And so,
Mhm.
anyway, I saw your one of your videos and that got my attention. But then when I realized where you were and what hospital it was, it really got my attention.
Yeah.
And we had a conversation, and I just knew that I had to have you on the pod because 90% of our listeners are North Missouri listeners. So, Sarah, about a year ago, your infant son, Finn, got sick,
Yes.
and you want to tell us what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll try to do like the quickest, most streamlined version because, gosh, it could go on forever. But essentially, what happened is Finn was 2.5 months old and he had woken up in the middle of the night for his midnight feeding and couldn't swallow his milk. I am a breastfeeding mom, but we were giving him bottles at night so my husband could help do the feedings.
Right.
He would take the bottle, but every time he'd try to swallow the milk, he was just getting mad. So he was thrashing his head around and you could tell he was just uncomfortable. And we did that from midnight to about 3:30 in the morning. And finally
Mm-hmm.
he fell asleep because he was exhausted. And then just woke up 30 minutes later. And again, he was a big boy. He was born, my daughter was 6 pounds, he was 9, and he loved to eat. So he was very hungry and very mad. And when he was trying to eat, he was taking in a lot of air. You just know, you can hear it when they're gulping. And so I had put up
Right.
my shoulder to get a burp out of him, so he didn't have an upset stomach too. And he spit up. I heard like a loud splat on the floor, and I turned the lights on, the overhead lights on, and there was some like burnt red. It looked like blood. It was mucus.
Mm-hmm.
And that freaked me out. I mean, I have a now 10-year-old daughter too, but I had never seen anything like that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I woke the family up. I mean, my husband was already up, but I woke my daughter up, got her out of bed. I called my mom and I was like, we're going to the ER. We need to get
Yeah.
this figured out.
That.
Um, just scared, terrified. And so
Right.
the ER, we have a neighborhood ER, and it's just like a St. Luke's affiliate. And
Mm-hmm.
uh 3, 4 blocks away, got in there. They told us the only thing they could really do for us for a baby that small was give him a chest x-ray, which they did. And they told us, we can't tell you that anything is wrong. There's definitely gas in his belly. You could see, like, when they showed us the x-ray, that there was
Right.
a gas in his belly. But his vitals were fine. He seemed fine. And so at that point, we got the pediatrician on the phone also. It was about 4:30 in the morning, and she's great. She direct primary care. We like text her anytime, and she's always right there. And she was just like, Sarah, it honestly sounds like he has a viral infection. Take him home, put him in a steamy shower. He'll be fine. Like he might have a sore throat. So try to give him a little bit of Tylenol, not the full dose because he was still a small baby, but just a little bit. And then if he's having trouble swallowing, maybe that'll help. So we did all of those things, got him home, and not like saline spray, warm, steamy room, nothing was helping. He was still mad, still wasn't drinking. So we tried to push a little bit of Tylenol. And at that point, I think because his throat was sore and he was a baby and had never had anything like that,
Right.
it got choked on it and turned bright red. And that freaked me out. I always say, like, when I'm telling this story, it felt like forever that he stopped breathing. But my husband's like, Sarah's 5 seconds, maybe, maybe 10 seconds.
No, it
Um,
probably felt like
but
forever.
it felt
Yeah.
forever. And it scared me. So I called the pediatrician again. I told her what was going on. And she was like, I could send you to a diagnostic imaging center because she's direct primary care. They don't have imaging in her office. So she has to like send us out. But they're going to send you to Children's Mercy because that's the only children's hospital around here.
Same. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, around pretty much all of, I think there's two in Missouri,
I only know of
two or
children.
three.
Well, yeah, I guess there's one in St. Louis too, right?
Yeah.
St. Louis.
Well, I guess four. There's Columbia, St.
Uh,
Louis. I think Joplin might have one. I think
oh,
Springfield, Joplin, And then, but North Missouri, it's
This is
children.
it.
Yeah.
Right. So, no questions. We're like, okay. My daughter, even though she had been up and it was a bit traumatizing, she wanted to go to school. She wanted to like live a normal life that day.
Right.
So we got her off to school and we went to Children's Mercy. And when we checked in, you know, told them the story, when they triaged him, they recorded that he had a bit of a fever, which we had been monitoring. And so it was going up. It was just slowly elevating. And, told them the story when they put us in a room and there was a resident doctor on our case. So Children's Mercy is a training hospital, which there's
Right.
nothing wrong with that. But the ER doctor that was seeing us was a resident. And at that point, I said, listen, I want a scope, I want a CT scan, I want everything because I don't
Right.
know what is happening to my child. Because I'm just overly cautious about that. And so they took him back, and we were able to go with him to get the first set of imaging done. And then they brought us back in the room and we waited. I swear it felt like forever. And that entire time, like he was most comfortable in our arms. He was, a little mad here and there because he couldn't eat, but he really, I mean, nothing was outwardly affecting him.
Right.
And so, God, after what felt like an eternity, three or four doctors came in, or doctors and nurses, whatever. It was a team of people that came in and they said, we need you to like sit down. We have some difficult news. And at this point, my husband and I were like, wow, I mean, they're going to tell us that our son has cancer or some
Right.
incurable disease,
Something. Yeah.
right? And it just kind of like deflated you. And then when they sat us down, they said, we found like multiple fractures in your son's body at different stages of healing, and we've hotlined this for child abuse, which was just as bad, right? I mean, we freaked out, started crying. I mean, it was every emotion you would expect from a parent.
No,
Um,
I totally like that part of your story stopped me last time because a year ago I had my daughter in children's for pediatric pneumonia and I had been fighting with my local St. Luke's about what was wrong with her. Chest
yeah,
x-rays said she
yeah.
didn't have anything viral and it was pneumonia. So I was in children's the same time for about 5 days with her. And I had my mom come in and out, but mainly it was me and her, and I'm a single mom. So when I saw your story like that stopped me. I was like, this all happened around the same time. But I just wanted to add
Yeah,
that before it got crazy.
yeah,
that
absolutely.
that a lot of us now you are married. I don't we
Yeah.
didn't say that, but you are
Yes.
married, so you have a husband.
Mhm.
But I mean, you just never know what's safe. I don't want to say that, but like nobody's safe.
And that's totally true. And I think, well, immediately, because I am a helicopter parent for sure.
Same,
And
same,
at 2.5, I had a daughter from a previous relationship and I raised her by myself essentially.
same.
This was my husband's first child. And so at 2.5 months, as much as I love him and I think he's great, they were never alone. Like I was always there and he was a breastfeeding baby that couldn't go very far away from
I
me, right?
breastfed my youngest for 2 years, so I
Yeah.
gotcha. She never took a bottle of Binky. It was just me.
And that's a
So
lot of work. So props to
yes,
you because, oh my
couldn't
God,
get far.
it's a
Yeah,
full-time job. But
it is.
like you don't get
Yes,
very far from your kid.
and
And
not for very long. Yeah,
right. And so when they told me this, I was like, okay, well, I know my husband didn't do anything because he, I've been there, I've
yeah,
been there the whole time.
yeah.
Um, but we had just brought in somebody because I work from home and my husband he is a British immigrant and, since getting his green card has been trying to find a job, which has been stressful, of course. But with a newborn, he hasn't been able to leave very much. So we brought someone in to sit at our house with us and help watch Finney while he could go out and try to find a job and I could do my work. And she'd only been working for us for 3 weeks, but in my brain, I mean, she was the only choice.
Right.
This was the only person
And
out.
they didn't seem like they were giving you details about when they think these fractions
No.
were or anything. So it's not like you had a timeline to be like,
Absolutely. And So what I know to be true now, and I'll just stick this in here, is they said multiple stages of healing these fractures, which you could see, I guess, because you see healing of fractures with calcification around the bone. So if there's more calcification around a bone in some places than others, then yeah, okay, maybe they happen at different times. But you can't timestamp a fracture. Like you can't look at a fracture and say, that is exactly 2 weeks old. Like that is impossible. Don't ever,
Right.
you or any of your listeners, don't ever let a doctor tell you that because every human being is made up differently and your DNA is different and you heal differently than the person next to you. And so you can't put a timing on a fracture, which I didn't know. So again, I'm just eating all of this up while they're telling me. And I'm like, oh my God, this nanny has been abusing our son. He's full of fractures, freaking
Right.
out. They looked in his throat and found what we know to be now is an ulcer. It was a viral ulcer, but they said it was a lesion from where somebody stuck their finger down his throat and cut his throat with their fingernail.
What?
Yeah, yes. Um, and so they're telling us all this, and they are saying, we have to get CF involved. We have to get the cops involved. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, absolutely. Because if somebody's hurting my son, then I want to know what's going on.
Right.
So we were so cooperative. At this point, we did not think to get a lawyer because we were innocent. And dumb, was like,
Right. You thought you were going to be a part of the
innocence will win in
investigation.
the end, right? Oh,
Yeah.
so dumb. Um, and so then they admitted us to the hospital at this point, and this is on October 3rd of last year, where they put us in a room and essentially don't treat him for anything. He had an IV for maybe 24, a little over 24 hours because he still wasn't swallowing. He had a sore throat and he needed fluids. But other than the IV, he wasn't treated for anything. But they would just come in every, 2 to 3 hours, take his vitals, and we had a babysitter, what they call a babysitter. So it's just like one to one that we weren't allowed to be alone with him from there on out.
Right.
And like DCF starts rolling in and asking for our story. They interviewed my daughter, they interviewed my mom, like everybody who was involved. All of our stories were, I've seen like the transcripts, almost word for word, the exact same. Um, the Mission PD, they called my husband and I in separately.
Because this is Johnson County, Kansas, correct?
Johnson County,
Yeah.
Kansas. Yeah, this is on the Kansas side. So, Mission PD calls us in on the 4th to do separate interviews, and it was clear in my interview. I don't know about my husband's, but in mine, it was clear that they just wanted me to say my husband did this. And I wouldn't because I was like, honestly, if you can prove to me that my husband did this, then I'll believe you and I'll do something myself. Like I will be very angry and upset and kick him to the curb. But my husband's a kind man. I've never seen him raise his voice. He's very gentle. It wouldn't hurt a fly. So I'm not going to tell you he did this just so you have somebody to pin it on.
Right.
And I didn't do this. So maybe we should be looking at other explanations like medical issues because they weighed the nanny out because they said that the fractures happened before she was working for us. And keep in mind the nanny's like her notes, the nanny's interview, it was like beautiful. This family so loving. I've never had any concerns. They talked to my daughter's teachers at school. They were like, nope, not this family. We've never had any concerns that like their daughter's doing great. Talked to the pediatrician who said, no, I've been in their house. Like this family is not abusing their child. Okay, so that is the investigative work that the
And they're ignoring all of it.
and they're ignoring all of it. Um, and essentially what happened is they kicked my husband out of the hospital after his interview. It was very clear they were going to just try to pin this on him, even though
Okay.
there was no evidence. Never once was there evidence. The only thing they had against us is that a scan doctor, a child abuse specialist at Children's Mercy, found these trauma injuries and decided it was abuse. They never ran a basic vitamin D panel, which is like the first thing you do to see if there's underlying bone
Yeah,
issue.
because your son was what, 4 months old?
He was 2.5 months.
2.5. Okay. So yeah, tiny.
Yeah. I told them that when I was pregnant, 39 weeks pregnant, right? I was curb walking. I don't know if you know what that is, but I was like trying to set myself into labor. So I read that like if you curb walk, it helps,
Oh, okay.
get your pelvis ready to have a baby.
Yeah.
I was doing that and I fell and my knee jammed up into my stomach. And like I was so injured and worried that I went to the hospital to check on the baby, to make sure everything was okay. And they didn't do like x-rays of him in utero at that time.
Just like an ultrasound. Yeah.
But still, that could have caused something that, they never looked into. And bottom line, this hospital decided it was abuse, and then they wrote up a report and gave it to DCF, and who decided also that it was abuse, even though they were talking to these people that said, no, 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 not this family. And eventually, we were just sitting in the hospital. My son had already been medically discharged because he didn't need anything. He was eating again. I would say within, 48 hours, he was breastfeeding just fine again, totally good. Very happy, most comfortable with his mom. And I asked, like, when are we going to leave? What is going on? Like, nobody's telling us
Right.
anything. And this nurse, keep in mind, they were all extremely rude to me, the nurses, like all the staff, because
The
they
whole time.
they had also decided that I was a child abuser.
Mm,
Um, she looked at me and she said, "Well, you're not leaving until your trial." I was like, "What? Excuse me, trial? Like, we don't have a lawyer.
right.
Nobody's told us this." And so on Sunday night, after 5 p.m., I get a text message, not even like a courtesy call, a text message from this DCF investigator that said, I need you at the Johnson County Courthouse at this time on Tuesday, like Tuesday at 2, and don't be late. That's it. That's all that she had to say.
As you're in the hospital waiting
Uh,
for information to be released, they say, no, you have trial. And then you get a text message.
yep. Yep. So they did not like it right from here, you start the oh crap moment. Like, I'm not even prepared for this. I'm in a hospital, with my son. How am I going to find a lawyer with this much? There's not a lot of notice. I don't know the first
Right.
about getting a lawyer because I've never been in trouble with the law. Um, and I just don't know how any of this works. So my mom is like calling and calling and calling around, just trying to figure out someone that can help us. Late Tuesday, we end up getting a hold of a lawyer that will represent us in court, and we meet, not late Tuesday, late Monday. And then Tuesday morning is the first time, like, I leave the hospital to meet this lawyer, and then we go straight to the courthouse. So that's as
Mm,
much time as I
my
have.
gosh.
But so keep in mind, while we are in the hospital, I mean, sheer luck, I believe in karma. I really do. And so I'm going to say it's like karmic that my neighbor is a good friend and her mom is a well-known lawyer that used to work at UMKC in Kansas. I guess,
Oh, my lawyer is my baby daddy's ex-wife. So yeah,
right?
I believe
It's
in
like,
the same thing.
yeah, this lawyer puts me in contact with this woman who is she's the most formidable, like this is all she does is her law practice. Since 2000, she's been fighting medical misdiagnosis of child abuse. Not only in this country, she does it worldwide. And so somehow I get a hold of this woman and she, in the back end, before I even have a real lawyer, is telling me, you need to get this record, you need to, get all of these. She's just giving me, do this, do this, do this, do this.
This is before court or
This is
after?
before court.
Okay.
She's trying to set me up for success because she knows what's coming. She's done
Mm-hmm.
it long enough that she knows like they're going to probably try to criminally charge you. She's not telling me this. I don't think she's trying to freak me out, but she wants me prepared.
Right.
And so in that, the doctors keep throwing these scan team doctors at Children's Mercy keep throwing printouts essentially of his x-rays at us, trying to make us feel bad almost like look at these fractures in your son. And honestly, my husband and I were like, we don't see anything. And so after that went on so much, I took pictures of all of them and I sent them to her. And I was like, listen, like, what can we do? And she got them off, just pictures, to some people that she's worked with in the past who immediately came back and said, it looks like that patient has rickets, like severe, could be severe rickets, or at least an underlying bone condition. His bones look very weak and fragile. And I brought this up with the hospital even at that point. I was like, what'd the vitamin D panel say? Which is when I found out they didn't even run a vitamin D panel. I'm like, I'm hearing this. We need to look into all of these things. And they laugh at me and say, nope, that's not necessary. We don't need to look into any of that. So even though I have the second opinion, and when we did get this lawyer to represent us, I took the emails to him too. I was like, look at this. We already have initial second opinions that
Right.
say that there's something else going on. And that lawyer didn't even bring them up in this first hearing that we went to. So we could probably have a whole nother podcast episode about the corruption in family court.
Oh my gosh. But
But
basically you went to that hearing and they said, we're taking both your children.
yep, we walked in, they handed us a petition, which was written by the DCF investigator. And all that was written in there is essentially carbon copy notes of the medical report. And then she peppered in, even if I give her the benefit of the doubt and say that it was mistakes, like clerical errors on her part, it was things like she said my husband and I weren't married, which paints a picture to the judge. She said that Finn was still hooked up to machines and like essentially fighting for his life in Children's Mercy, which was a lie. He was medically discharged like days before. And so we got that petition 2 minutes before the judge walks in. You have no time to prepare a defense for yourself. And if that's the only thing that the judge is making an opinion based off of, she read it and said, take the kids in less than 30 minutes. It was, we're taking these kids out of this situation. And that was
And
shocking.
you're breastfeeding.
Yep.
So that's a factor.
Yep.
Didn't care. Your daughter has nothing to do with this situation, but they took her automatically too.
9 years old, can talk
Yeah.
for herself, said, my parents have never touched me. Like the worst punishment I get, honestly, she said they take my iPad when I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
And I just, it was shocking. It was, I had no idea that that could happen. You grow up in this country and learn about the justice system, and I just felt in my bones like the very least
Mm-hmm.
we have a chance to defend ourselves before they took our children,
Right.
but we didn't, and they took them. They just,
Right. Because they're I understand wanting to hotline if you feel it really is. Like, I don't want to say that the system is just doesn't need to exist,
yeah,
obviously. But what gets me is as they were still saying this child is being abused, they should still be running tests to make sure, even if they
it's
think
nothing
you're,
else.
yes.
Yes.
Like,
Why wouldn't you do
this
that?
is why conspiracy theories
100%.
aren't really always conspiracy theories because it's all about quotas, it seems. It's always like just check boxes like, oh, we haven't sent, any kids to or parents to court for a while. We need to send some more. Like,
You know what? And it's not even okay. Yeah, it depends on like how conspiracy in this you want to
well, I'm
get.
just saying it just seems like it's more like a checklist than really
No,
because if it's really about the child, what's happening? That's what makes me think it's just about what getting into the justice system to get the wallets open. Like, oh,
right?
we already used the insurance. We already went there for the money. Let's move it over here and get some more. Like that, you know
Oh,
what I mean?
well, and the insurance is like a whole nother layer because
Oh,
we
girl, I know.
we didn't have insurance. So the minute we were in there, they were trying to set my son up on Medicaid. And then I find out that Children's Mercy on the Missouri side, right? Because it's in the
hmm
middle of Kansas and Missouri.
Yeah, I've lived in Missouri my whole life, so I
Yeah,
know a lot about Kansas, but
right. But on the Missouri side,
right, Johnson County, Missouri side, yeah.
yes. Children's Mercy, they collect, and I could even send you this paperwork because me, other victims of this, we've done a ton of digging and research on our own.
Yeah, send it to
But
me.
essentially, the head of the department, okay, I won't name him just in case they try to come after me. But the very head of this scan department, he sits on a committee, a board on the Missouri side that decides how much money the programs like this are going to get at each of the hospitals. So he directly decides how much grant funding Children's Mercy is going to get for finding abuse. Okay. Then the grant that funnels into Children's Mercy,
Mm-hmm.
this board, right, clearly states, it says once you start like a child abuse workup, or you're doing some kind of investigation on this grant, you cannot bill Medicaid or private insurance because you're billing the grant for the work. Okay. But what we're finding,
This is just Missouri
this
side.
is just the Missouri side.
Okay.
But what we're finding from people on the Missouri side is that Children's Mercy is billing both the grant and private insurance. So,
Where's the money from the grant? Is it a federal grant or is it a
yes,
private donation also?
it's a federal grant,
Okay.
which comes from this board that the
Mm-hmm.
head of the scan team sits atop of.
Okay.
Okay. So I try very hard not to get conspiracy about this because I care so much about it, and you lose people when you start to get conspiracy.
Yeah, but people also have to realize these are people's real lives and it happens. And when you hear it enough, it's not, we all can't be crazy conspiracy theorists.
Well, yeah. And at the end of the day, let's take the word conspiracy out of it. If you tie anything like a child abuse program that gets federal money, if you
Mm-hmm.
tie funding that they're getting, federal funding to grant goals or quotas or numbers that they have to meet and constantly find to keep their grant from the government,
Correct.
that gets gray, murky, right? Maybe I'm not going to say nefarious, but it,
Anytime there's a federal, that's why my nonprofit side of this, Unhealed, I don't do any, I haven't signed up and I don't plan to in the future for any grants. I'm just self-funded
Mhm.
because I don't want any regulations
Yeah,
on how much I can help, how many I can help, who I can help. Like, I don't want any of that. But as I've researched on the DV side, even shelters and stuff, it is all regulated and it's all seems to be regulated to help the system, not the people. Same which
right.
what I was pointing out with your son. Like, if the proof wasn't in the pudding, it would be about the kid. You would be doing all the things in the process of no matter what. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just
Well, and then, okay, so then we can fast forward to like the most insane. My children were taken October 8th, a year ago yesterday. And then they took my mom out of the running for being able to keep them because they said she was coaching my daughter because all of our stories were too similar, which is
the
insane.
truth. The
But
truth.
the truth. But
Yeah.
okay. Um, so they passed my children through three separate homes between October 8th and November. I think it was like November 11th when they finally
So
decided
not even a month. A month.
three homes in a month. And then they decided that my mom was
Is
okay
sorry. What's your son doing about milk? Like, are you pumping and taking it?
pumping.
Are they? They're still letting you pump and stuff.
They're
Okay.
letting me pump. And then when he's put into a daycare, I can go to his daycare and feed.
Okay.
So we're doing that. At first, we could only see them like the first week, we could only see them once a week for a couple hours, which was horrible.
Hard. Yeah.
Um, and then after that, they moved to the next family, and that family, we could see the kids as much as they cared to supervise us. And that family didn't care if we were over there all the time. So we got to see them a lot more in the second house. And then the third had a little bit more boundary. So I just saw him to feed essentially at daycare. And I got to see my daughter at like her soccer games. Um, but they, in November, let my mom take the
And
kid.
your husband too? Was your husband allowed to?
Yeah,
But you guys were so abusive?
right,
But you are good with supervised
right.
visitations? Okay.
Yeah. There's so many eye rolls in all of this. Oh, let me also just mention DCF never. So the first house, she goes, they made me do a checklist, DCF did, about the only prerequisites of letting your kids come into my home were that I had a toilet and running water, essentially.
I had my niece for her the first 7 months of her life. Now this is Missouri, not Kansas,
Yeah.
but they came in. The checklist was crazy. I had to get a fire extinguisher, and I had two kids, but like I didn't have half the stuff on this list, and I had to go
Yeah.
do that. Missouri was very like thorough, so that's crazy that you're saying that because even and this was a family like it was still foster relative, but they call it like family foster.
Kinship here, probably.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Yes.
exactly. Um,
But I still had to follow just like I wasn't. You know what I mean? Like she came in, everything.
and they came in. They didn't even go into this house to check for
She
themselves.
opened to look for, opened my cabinets, went like the whole thing.
Didn't even show up. And then the second home, they just did a video walkthrough of the second home. And then the third home, I'm pretty sure they never walked through either. So it's like you're telling me you're
Running water and a toilet, that's all your requisites.
right. You're so concerned about these.
Take from a home where they want for nothing.
Also, they never came into our home. You're telling me DCF can take our kids from our home without even coming into our home to see how these kids live? Like it just make it make sense
They
because
never did a home visit for you.
not until after the kids were in our house and we
And
had,
placement was coming back. Yeah.
right. Yeah, that was it. So that's maddening. And my eyes have been opened to how disgusting and broken that it all is.
Because it's just all about money.
And I think it is all about money, but it's money both sides, right? Because what I do know about Kansas DCF is they've been on PIP since 2015, so a performance improvement plan by the federal government because they have failed kids
Have
so
they?
bad.
A lot of kids are in the system, especially in Johnson County, Kansas.
Kansas has the one of the highest in the country children in the system. But they don't pay employees. They give them too much on their caseload, and they hire people like our investigator who is not qualified to be in her job, probably just has a chip on her shoulder because she came in and ruined our lives without ever doing any kind of proper
Yeah, I
investigating.
was going to say this is dealing with people's lives, but that's
Why?
why I say it's about money because they just don't care.
Right. Exactly. And then you have the layer of, and I fit into this category before. If a doctor says that this is abuse, then it must be abuse. Like, why would you question a medical professional? Like, nobody in their right mind is going to question somebody that calls themselves a child abuse specialist. Like,
Right.
that's crazy. I was,
Hmm.
I was there too. But then
That's
fast,
why you really got to be checking people out for sure.
right? And then so we get in this, and again, we know we didn't hurt our son. We know that the nanny probably also didn't hurt our son. And we have
Right.
second opinions that are saying it looks like your son has weak bones. Okay. So the first time that we can get Finney into his pediatrician, who, let me just repeat, she has been on our side the whole time, fighting for us. She called Children's Mercy several times because when she would get his files, were full of errors. And she's like, you can't even take his proper weight. They had him in as a girl, like just little clerical errors that were ridiculous.
Right.
She's back here fighting for us too. And the first time we can get him in to see her, because now we're on this mission of like, what's going on with him? This hospital said abuse, but we know there's got to be something under the surface. And she's feeling around on his head and notices that his anterior fontanelle has closed prematurely. This was about 6 months. That's not supposed to close for a while. And so she's like, oh, like we need to get him in for an ultrasound on his head immediately because, this could be bad. If the skull is fused closed too soon and it's not growing with the baby, then the brain could be cut off from room to grow, oxygen, etc. So it's a pretty big deal. Um,
Yeah.
and honestly, really scary. So now we don't have custody of our children, and we have to worry about. We obviously are not going back to Children's Mercy to look into this. So we find a way to get him to Wichita to see a neurologist who does say, yep, it's closed. He has craniosynostosis. But thankfully, it's not a problem. Like he's meeting his milestones. We're actually going back next month to have a checkup, and it's fine because everything's working the way it should. But it does signify that there's maybe like a bone growth issue, right? And
Right.
there's definitely
But
something.
not a calcium issue, or yes?
We don't think there's a calcium.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we do know. I mean, I was breastfeeding and he was a rapidly growing baby. So there is this theory out there that he wasn't getting enough nutrients from my breast milk alone because we weren't supplementing with formula or anything else,
Right. I didn't either. Yeah.
right? So that his
And you don't know
bone,
by, yeah,
there's no way to know that. It's all internal. Like I
what
could
your body's
be,
making, how fat, because like some women have fattier breast milk than others.
right.
Like you just don't know how your breast milk is producing. Yeah.
So we know, that probably he wasn't getting enough nutrients from my breast milk alone. And we had notes even in utero that he was growing so rapidly that we just think that his bones weren't able to catch up to as fast as he was
Yeah.
growing. And that is like indicative of his fontanelle closing too early. So there's that. He's also been very like poppy since birth. Like you pick him up and he pops a lot. And I didn't experience that with my daughter. So it was a bit of a red flag, like, oh, why are his hips popping? That's weird.
Right.
And I, on my own journey, got diagnosed with hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos, which is a connective tissue disorder. There's a million different variants, I would say, of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Hypermobile is just one, but how that resonated in me from the time I was a child until like in my early 20s, let's say late 20s, is I had a lot of joint dislocations. I had a lot of bone breaks. I had a lot of weird things that happened like under my skin with my bones that a healthy, kid shouldn't have had
Right.
because everything's loosey-goosey inside of me. And how that shows up in babies. So when an adult parent has Ehlers-Danlos of any kind, a child already has 50% chance of getting that genetic like passed down to them.
That affects the tissue.
Exactly. And so there's the theory also that he probably has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which in children you can't really find until they're at least 6 years old. So he's a little small. We can't get it unless we can get a whole genome sequence done, which is something we're working on. It's just without health insurance, almost impossible to get done. Um,
Yeah.
but what we're finding, the more we get into this world of medical kidnapping and these medical misdiagnoses of child abuse, is that children with Ehlers-Danlos who go to the doctor for something like a virus, like Finney had, and they put them in an X-ray machine, they're finding what they're calling fractures, but really they are not fractures at all. It's just where like bone on bone is rubbing and it's causing like a callus at the end of the bones.
Okay.
And they're being misdiagnosed as fractures. But we were able to send his scans to a second opinion radiologist who is just like top of her game, graduated from Harvard, smart, smart, smart woman, who said, this is crap. These fractures don't exist. He did have two. They tried to diagnose 14, but he did have a rib fracture and he had a wrist.
Crazy.
And she said, but his bones looked weak. So that means you can have any normal event impact an unhealthy bone and cause a fracture in a baby because baby's bones at most are like the width of two toothpicks put together. And they're
Right. And they're very, like, not breakable, but very, like, easily
thin.
breakable. Yeah. But
Yes. Yeah. So she was like, essentially, she counteracted like everything they said and totally proved that this hospital not only misread his scans, but just also failed to look into anything outside of it,
anything. Right.
right?
It's
Um,
like they literally just sent you guys off to the system and we're done with it. Oh, this baby's being abused. He has broken bones. Oh, he's there you go.
that's exactly what they did. That's all
Literally.
they- Yep. And then tried to send us like a couple $100,000 bill. We're like, okay, absolutely not. So,
How far? That's crazy because my bill with Macy being in there 5 days, even though my ex-husband signed his rights over, and we won't even get into my story.
yeah.
He said the bill from that they sent him is only $20, and I was like, "That's weird."
But do you guys have insurance? Does
Blue Cross Blue Shield of
right. So
KC,
that's probably
or
why.
maybe it's not even
Yeah.
KC anymore. It might be Illinois. I'm not sure, but that how long were your children actually in the system? Like,
Right. So my mom got them in November and they were with her, but we could see them supervised until April of this year. And then that's when we were completely reintegrated in our home under one roof without,
full time?
yes, and we didn't need supervision anymore. However,
Good.
DCF was still holding custody. So
So
we
that
got,
means you basically have visitations of your own children.
well,
They're
they live with us. It's our job to keep them alive and pay for
right,
it.
right.
But
But
they're holding like their birth certificates essentially, you know, and they're collecting their social security benefits is the other thing, right? And that's just like a question I put out there to, I mean, I've been emailing politicians, I've been emailing you name it. And I'm just like, somebody please explain to me how we can get custody or we can get our children back, but DCF can hold custody, even though they're not doing anything to support these children anymore. They're just essentially collecting benefits off of them. And of course, I haven't
you
heard
just haven't been to court to be cleared yet, basically.
exactly, right?
And it, yeah,
So at April time, we had already proved with all the people that mattered, essentially, KVC, who I don't know if you've heard that name, but it's the foster care company that works with DCF to come in the home and be a caseworker of our family. They, after a month, I would say, of being in our home, watching us with our kids, they were like, this is so stupid. I mean, they were 100% on our side, fighting
yeah,
for us to be back together. The DA, the prosecutor, we had shown him enough evidence. He was willing to drop the case. This was like, I'm talking February of 2025, that all these players were like, okay, we're ready to be done. Their guardian ad litem, who was a joke, he didn't even bother to meet my kids the entire time that they were in the situation, which again, we could do a whole nother podcast on that. But everybody's ready to drop it, and we present that to the family court judge, and she's like, no, somebody's gonna have to explain to me why this child was full of fractures. Love you. Okay. Um, she's like, nope, somebody's gonna have to explain to me why this child is full of fractures, even though we had already done that.
right.
The process of family court is that you have to plan an actual trial to present that evidence,
I know. I
right? Right? So it's like we've already done all of that. We've already presented all this. Why are you the last person? She just doesn't read the files. And that's the thing. She gets all these files, but she didn't have to read them. It's uh it's bananas.
everyone gets paid more by postponing it.
Yeah. And
Everyone, every party but you. Yeah,
you're right. And for the
everyone
full
involved.
year, yeah, and for the full year, that's all we did, right? We'd show up to our
Because
every
they're getting money off your children for being in the system on every which way.
oh, and the programs that they assign you to
Yeah.
do because you're an abusive parent, like everybody and their friends gets a little trickle down, you know? And so finally, we after that, I had essentially had enough, and that's when I took to TikTok because it was a calculated risk. I can almost guarantee that if this judge probably would have seen my TikTok, there would have been hell to pay. But I was tired of not being heard. And,
Right.
keep in mind, like when you're branded a child abuser, then in our neighborhood, everybody thinks we're a child abuser. Like everybody, we lost a lot of friends. What this did to our reputation as human beings
Well, people just want to count people out when there's any sign of adversity or hardship or anything. Then nobody does their research. The loudest mouth in the room is usually the.
isn't that the truth?
It's the same with domestic violence. Yeah, the loudest one or the first one to blare the horn because they are the ones calculating the game and you don't even know you're playing a game. So by the time you realize you're playing the game, the ball's been called and the timer's running out. Like it's
Right? And I
Yeah,
hate to say it, but in domestic abuse, like typically still the woman in the situation is like doesn't stand much of a chance. I feel like it's always not in favor of her no matter what. Um,
I only got I got lucky because I had sent him a message. I was homeless. I mean, my story is
yeah.
very crazy.
I I've caught up a
Um,
little bit on your story.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I sent him a text message and was like, I'm not co-parenting with your wife anymore. She's, emotionally abusing our daughter. She's doing this, this, and that. And it doesn't say in my papers that I only have to talk to her about pickup times and how our kid's doing. Like,
Yeah.
I had a kid with you.
Right.
And he did it for 2 weeks. So I blocked his wife, and he did it for 2 weeks and sent me a letter that he was signing his rights away. He had been her dad her entire 9 years. And when I was in the, I did that when I learned how it goes in the system, not everyone has that easy of a story. Now, I had to hustle and bustle with this man for a decade. So I didn't get off completely scot free. I put in my time, but there's so much more horror stories than mine. I got really lucky. But
Yeah.
I also didn't have a lawyer. I did get railroad. So when I say I got lucky, I am now having to fight for child support because I he paid allegedly somehow paid his lawyer extra or got him to do extra where they put these fraudulent papers in the back of my papers that basically said that if I went after child support or put her on Medicaid because she is autistic,
Yeah.
and he has Blue Cross and Blue Shield, but they don't cover developmental delays. So they were basically telling me I can have full custody and he was going to give me this kid. That's all I've wanted for years. When you're fighting with
Mhm.
your abuser, that was his thing over my head. The only reason we're still at the party together, you know?
Right.
And so, anyway, they said I had to take his insurance. I couldn't get her on any other. Crazy. And that if I filed for child support, because he's signing everything away. So I have full everything and he's not giving me a furniture or savings account, nothing, right? But if I filed for child support, and granted, he makes a lot of money, he's a lineman. If I filed for child support, I have to pay back what I was requesting, give her back to him. And I was just in such a bad place in my life that I didn't look at these papers. I was just trying to figure out how I now was going to be a single mom because my first daughter doesn't have a dad either. So now I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, here we are, two for two. And what am so I was so have been so focused on my own survival, I didn't look at my papers. And then
Yeah.
when I compared my papers finally to I looked my county papers, I'm like, these don't exist. And no judge would ever have agreed to this. And then I got down the road of railroading. And that's how I got on the domestic, or not the domestic, on the court cases with domestic because they're all intertwined. It's like the same beast, just different part of the system.
Right. 100%.
So are you currently, and then like I said, the other thing, which is that hospital, that's where I take my children to. That is where I was at with my daughter as I'm going through this stuff with this man.
Mhm.
She was in the hospital for 5 days. So God, like, if I put myself in your shoes, I'm like, what would I have done? Like, what do
You would have done the same. And I think that's the other thing that is so shocking in all of this is when I took to social media, when I took to TikTok, it was because holy crap, I've never heard of this before. Like others should know this exists. And then when I did that, our first story took off, went viral very quickly. And I started the stories just started pouring in. Like my comment section was like, it happened to me too. This, and this at Children's Mercy, like same exact story, almost same exact age. And
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, like, it's no exaggeration to tell you, I have thousands. I always say this, but I truly have thousands of stories just out of Children's Mercy alone that are almost carbon copy of what happened to us. And
And this
the
is on both Missouri and Kansas side, or have you noticed
both,
one, both
both,
of them?
yep. And the devastating part of this is many of them won't speak up because they're terrified of retaliation. And two, the ones who have not been fortunate to find good lawyers or get second opinions, their children they are losing their children over this. And they're being adopted out. Like good people are losing children.
Not right. They're never getting placement opportunities or nothing.
No, never. They're being adopted out to new families. And
That is terrifying.
it's terrifying. And I feel it's so hard because I want to bring awareness to others in this area that this is a
But you
possibility.
don't, now that you have your kids back, you don't want to put a target on your back. But at the same time, like, you got, like, it's kind of the same thing with me. Like, it's like once I got Macy back and I had full custody, that's when I started realizing it was even abuse and my voice got louder. So I feel like with you, once you got your kids back, you're like, yeah, I could be fearful, but at the same time, like, this is ridiculous and what I've been through was ridiculous. So it's just like you're trying to tread that
I
line.
think, yeah, and I probably don't even have a healthy dose of fear about them retaliating against me because at this point, it's like, gosh, my TikTok is enough proof alone. If I showed, well, I have,
Hmm.
any lawyer, anybody that looked at my comment section,
Right. It's just making you jump through more
thank
hoops if they
you.
did that. Yeah.
But I think the other thing is what I've learned, and I try to say this in a way, like now all I do is read these stories. I take people's comments and I read them on my TikTok because it's just another way of passing awareness. But what I always want to say is, my kids, if they were ever hurt, I'd take them straight to the hospital. I'm going to always have PTSD when it comes to medical issues, period. In my
Hmm.
I will never go to Children's Mercy again, but I'm not gonna deny them medical care
Care.
if they need
Right.
it. And I want to also say there have been tons of Children's Mercy employees, current, past, who have reached out to me to say, I'm so sorry about what you're going through. This hospital has gone so far downhill. We're embarrassed to work here. It's embarrassed. Like, this happens all the time. They say, like, I get mandated reporters that are like, I'm a mandated reporter. I would never step foot in that hospital based on what I see. I mean,
Mm.
we're talking current staff that's just like it's getting out of hand, but we can't say anything out because they're scared they'll lose their job. They're scared they'll something will happen to them.
You had mentioned something, I know that we'll wrap this up soon, but you have mentioned something on your TikTok that there was some kind of, they get a lot of private donations or there was some kind of something.
Oh, yeah, I did a TikTok about the Big Slick. So the Big
Okay,
Slick
yeah, what's
is
that?
their like yearly donors event.
Oh, where they do like the gala
Yeah,
or
yeah,
like
yeah. And
party,
and they pull in big names. You were talking, Jason Sudeikis, Paul
all the
Rudd.
KC people, Heidi Gardner.
Yep,
Is that her name? Yep.
yep. They pull them all in and they get millions in this one event alone. And
Patrick Mahomes, I think, right? Did it?
oh, yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm sure like Taylor Swift will be a part of it, this year.
Yeah.
It's a huge event. They get lots and lots of money from it. And that's fine because also I will say,
Now, is that for that hospital
no,
or all the Children's
no,
Mercy?
it's for that hospital.
Just for Children's Mercy, that campus or all the
Oh,
campuses?
no, probably for all the
Yeah,
campuses.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah. I imagine for the entire umbrella of Children's Mercy Hospital. Yeah.
But just for that hospital.
I don't think it's just for that hospital. No.
I meant just for Children's Mercy, like
Yes.
not for like any other, just a
Right.
Children's Mercy organization
Exactly.
thing.
And so I think what I tried to, like, I think people should know what they're in bed with, essentially. And so that was the point
Hmm.
of that video. It didn't take off or go anywhere. But
Well, it got
it's,
my attention because it's like if they're doing something like that once a year and you're kind of chasing the, like you said, researching the money or chasing like they're building two insurances, like what else is this, are these things going to? Because if they're, if, and it might be two different, I don't know what the big slick, if it was going to what grant,
well,
but
we'll never
just,
know. We'll
well,
never know.
just like what you were saying, they were charging that grant and still charging your insurance. All parties should be like, what here? Unless, you know what I mean? Nobody cares.
Well, yeah. And let me also just say I've been working with a mom that there will be eventually in the near future a huge story that I do with her because her medically complex child was being held at Children's Mercy recently and he wasn't being treated. So they were being held there and he was slowly just deteriorating and not getting any treatment that he needed. And she was just being charged, racking the bill up. And finally, recently, she got him moved to another children's hospital to be treated. She's only been there for a couple weeks, and she said immediately he's like gained weight. He's, she's getting care that she never received
Mm-hmm.
as Mercy. But some of the things that she's telling me about like his transfer, most of the times when a hospital does a medical transfer like that, it's in a helicopter. They were forcing her to take their private jet, which took a whole different,
What?
yeah. And it took a whole different route of like the insurance had to approve it. It was a lot more money, as you can imagine. And I won't get into a ton because it'll be a big story eventually, but
Did they try to bill her too
they did.
for this jet?
Yes.
I've never heard like I mean,
The
I guess I have heard like of helicopters or was it different state?
No, Missouri. Missouri to Missouri. Yeah.
Get the heck out.
Yeah.
And
So,
yeah, I have a really close friend that has a medically compromised child and she's getting denied a lot of things.
yeah, I
But
think that the care there is lacking. But what I will say is, I am sure I would never ever say that this hospital is all good or all
all bad, right.
right. Because I do think that there are probably amazing doctors at this hospital who save lives, do wonderful things. And
Of course.
any adult, any mature adult should be able to recognize that. But you can't also say that there's probably not some nefarious things happening at this hospital. So, bottom line, like let's just to like wrap it up in a pretty bow is we were able to prove that my son had an issue so much that when our DCF, because you have to go through family court and DCF court, and then if you're
Right.
charged criminally you have to go through criminal court, but we were never charged criminally.
Thank goodness.
I know, right? They're trying. But on the DCF side, when they dropped the case, they literally put in their notes the reasoning is because essentially, like, what was it? I have it over here, new medical findings. So it took a whole year for them to drop a case that could have been
Well, yeah, and
not
now
even
you're trying you and now you have probably your daughter that has some trauma from this
oh,
situation. Your son, you're trying to put your family back together, but at the same time, like I'm assuming you're wanting to fight for
well,
like
yeah.
go back after the hospital and
Yeah, it's not I'm trying to keep the boundaries, right? Because I'm
yeah.
mom first.
Yeah.
I'll always be mama's first, and I
And
suffered
you wait what 6 months without them?
6 months without them. And
And
so
he was 2 months old. So when you got him back, he's crawling probably.
well, and
And
thankfully, because my mom had him most of that time, we witnessed the milestones.
it's
Like,
still not the same as the day to day with your
it's
children.
not. And I don't know what I would have done if I had missed those things. I would be in a much worse position. I would say that. And the thing I keep trying to bring forward is a lot of parents are missing those things. Like, over a medical misdiagnosis, parents are not able to see their babies.
And that's why I say I don't mean to put it on a conspiracy thing, but if it's not about the money, what is it?
What
Because
is it?
I only know a lot of a couple of things that make people do evil things like this, and it's money and power. So
Or
if it if it's not those two things, which is seeming like it's those two things, what is it?
And I think it brings up the great debate too, which I would be interested in talking like after you send this out there, what your
Yeah, we
listeners,
can do a part two, a follow up.
because the great debate, like the biggest debate in my comment section always is, oh, sorry,
No, you're
is,
cool.
um, hospitals, we're just mandated reporters. We are just supposed to report something suspicious, and then it's DCF job or the state's job or whoever is in charge to come in and investigate. Okay, fair. But when you're a hospital and you're saying you're giving a diagnosis, a finite medical diagnosis, this child was abused, then you can't tell me that DCF, who again, some of them, I don't think you have to have a college degree to be in DCF. You're definitely not probably a doctor with a medical degree.
No, right. I think you have to maybe a
Yeah,
certificate of some sort, or maybe a 4 year, maybe a two. I don't know.
yeah. But you can, either way, you can't tell me that then
Well,
they,
I do know in Missouri a lot of DFS, we call it DCF,
yeah.
DFS, whatever. They used to be cops. and now they work there. So
Oh,
now that I know a few people that and I know a few people that worked at like um, the food stamp office or whatever, and then
yeah.
moved to children's,
Yeah.
but a lot of them are just all different walks of life.
But none of them are probably medical professionals
No, or trained
or
properly.
properly
Right. They're
trained.
probably just sent out in the wolves. And it's like, and honestly, that's what I meant in the beginning of this pod. Unless you are being railroaded by the system, your brain doesn't think like what we're talking about.
Right. And that's,
And
and that's,
it's good that people aren't traumatized, that they don't know that this is how world works. But once you know, you can't unsee it.
I agree. But yeah, this has opened up an entire new world that, I mean, it's sad to be a part of, but there's also a lot of good people fighting in this world that I'm happy to know and fight alongside. But gosh, is it crazy to be here?
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm
Right?
fighting for child support when I should never have to because you can't bastardize a child in Missouri. But yet, my ex-husband and his lawyer bamboozled me and did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They got away with it for a year. I mean, they're still getting away with it, but I mean, we're actively fighting. But and that's just that. I'm just chasing child support for my kid to have justice. You were chasing for your kid.
Yeah.
Like it's just a whole different ballgame. But thankfully, you just like I was saying about my story, I've heard worse. You're probably thinking the same thing. Like we got
Oh,
really lucky.
yeah. I say that all the time. Like we are the lucky ones, which is insane to say.
Well, we will definitely need to do a part two so we can get into the nitty gritty of everything. And we just really thank you for being here. I already am gonna text three different people. I'm like, you're gonna have to check this out. Just because that's just off the top of my head. Just
Yeah.
because that is just like I said, that's the hospital it's where I always go. If there's a need to go to a children's hospital. That's where I've gone for the past 15 years of being a mom. My daughter was born in Liberty. So I've always gone to local Kansas City hospitals and children's being the first one for my kids. And then
Yep.
I'm on the wait list for my daughter to get her autism treatment done there, switch there. And it's crazy. And like you said, it's not saying it's a bad hospital, but it's like no one is informed until it's like crazy moms that are like, hey, this is happening. Like, why is there nobody else talking about this but the crazy moms? Hey,
Isn't
we're
that?
being railroaded by the system.
Oh, that's so true. We're the loudest.
The
Oh,
craziest too, probably.
right?
Well,
Yeah,
thank you, Sarah. I hope you have a good day and we will have to catch back up with you.
definitely. Yeah, you have a good day. Thanks for having me on, and I look forward to talking again.
Yeah, you as well. Bye.
Bye.